There's no playbook to what trust and transparency is on social media right now. It is catered to each brand, and so we like to take a step back and say, what do you truly stand for? And more importantly, what are the things that you're not proud of? We need to know what's behind the curtain, because if there is something behind the curtain, we're going to have to face that and be very mindful of that, because the internet knows everything.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with KB, the Director of Social Strategy at The Many. KB, it's great to have you.
It's great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about The Many, based right here in Santa Monica.
The Many, we've actually been around for 10 years, and we're formerly known as Mistress. We've been on the West Coast our entire existence. It is a culture hub for who we are. We love going to the beach, we love being outdoors, but we love working hard as well. The Many really prides ourselves in who we are as people. Human connection and human instinct and human insights is the baseline of who we are. We pride ourselves in optimism, and we're always up for the challenge. One thing in particular that really makes us different from the competitors is we try to find that fundamental unmet need in the industry and address it head on.
You penned an article for Ad Age last year, sort of, I'll call it mindful social.
Fair.
Warning, brands to sort of be careful about, trolling. And what advice do you have for your clients in sort of, wading into that world and dealing with real-time social?
Yeah, so the term real-time social is an interesting one because social is only known as real-time. So there's a lot of interesting terms that people have been throwing around that don't really make sense anymore. One of them, for example, is UGC, it's user-generated content. Is UGC people making content based on your call to action, or is UGC a brand taking that content and turning it into branded content? So I think people are forgetting just the core of what social media is, and with that comes real-time responses. So for me, a real-time response is when you find something on the internet that you deem worthy of interacting with. The trend right now for trolling has always been seen as a negative, but trolling doesn't have to be negative. There's also a positive association with it. When clients hear the word trolling or brands hear the word trolling, they become a little terrified, thinking that I might do something that pushes us outside the boundaries. But again, that's the purpose of social. It's your place to experiment and have fun. I want to be very mindful when brands insert themselves into conversations. We need to figure out, first of all, if it's legal. And you also need to make sure that it starts at a brand level. A lot of people that run social media accounts see opportunities to increase engagement, but it might not be the right opportunity for that brand. So my advice to people is make sure that you always start at the brand level, whether it's a text-only tweet or a Super Bowl campaign. You need to make sure that what you're talking about is authentically you, because the internet is the baseline for all information, and that's where social media lives. So if you're inserting yourself into a conversation that actually is irrelevant to your brand or doesn't stand to your brand values, you can get in trouble for that. The fans know they can leave reviews, they can troll your comments, just like how you're trolling your competitors. So being mindful of how you're inserting yourself into the conversation is one of the top things we need to be mindful of this year.
What brands do you think are doing this whole job of authenticity well? Who's really good at actually, a big part of it is making themselves vulnerable, right? And sort of open to the criticisms and feedback and comments. Any spring to mind?
From a bias perspective, I think Qdoba is doing a great job. We've been working with them for quite some time, and they're so mindful with who they are. They've never lost sight of their brand values, and one thing that Qdoba really focuses on is we are good people. We have great product, we have amazing flavors, everything is authentic and real for us. So I think Qdoba is doing really great staying in their brand guidelines, but also taking it a little step further every year to push the boundaries. Another obvious one, Wendy's has always done a great job. The interesting thing about Wendy's is they took a risk and decided we don't care who you think we are, this is who we are on social. So they took a stand and defined their platforms on social and said, we are the troll of Twitter. We will always be that troll. They very rarely insert their brand products into their trolls. It's more about just getting engagement. So they've gone completely off the rails, and it's worked for them because they were really the first to market to really make it work and know that it's not necessarily about promoting the brand, it's their brand personality, specifically on social. And the fact that they were able to translate that into a Super Bowl ad is a feat in itself. It's very rare that people can build a specific tone of voice on one social platform that isn't focused on your brand and then translate it into a Super Bowl ad and get an amazing response.
Tell us, in fact, about some of that award-winning work that you've done, both for Qdoba and also for FX Networks,
Mm-hmm.
where you got, you successfully were, garnered a Shorty Award.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons why we were able to win awards is because who the clients are. They're willing to take risks, they're willing to listen, they're willing to test things out. For FX, they're always pushing the boundaries, and when we were able to work with American Horror Story, we knew this was our chance to do something fun. So we spent a lot of time exploring what the actual topic and strategy was behind American Horror Story for this season in particular, and it was all about the apocalypse. It was in the teaser, so we were allowed to talk about it. When you work on TV shows or movies, you have to be very particular about how not to spoil a plot line. So for American Horror Story, we knew that we were able to capitalize on that apocalypse mentality and translate that into social. So we ended up blacking out their entire posting strategy that they've done for years. They have millions of followers and everyone loves their content. They love reminiscing, and we said, the past is gone, the apocalypse is here, you can't go back now. So we ended up blacking out their entire platform and turning it into static imagery. The first thing that would happen in an apocalypse is everything would go dark. When the TV and radio and things slowly start to pick up, in theory, if they did, everything would be static and nothing would make sense. So we decided to translate that potential real world thing into an online platform and turn everything static with hidden imagery throughout all of the posts. So the most interesting part is we know that American Horror Story fans are obsessed with American Horror Story. So we left little nuggets within each post, directing them to a website to actually enter to win a contest to see the episode first. Fans went crazy for it. They loved the fact that the history of American Horror Story was gone, just like what was going to happen in the episode. And they were able to explore what those hidden messages were and try to figure out what the story was. For Qdoba specifically, they came to us a while back when Chipotle first released their queso. Qdoba is very known for their queso. It's loved. The internet is obsessed with it. So when we decided that we need to figure out a way to insert ourselves into that conversation, we realized again that we really needed to stay true to who we were. And through social listening and audience insights, we found out that Chipotle's fans are not loyal. They never have been. They're easily switchable. But also Qdoba fans are very loyal. They will not switch, and they have a lot of opinions. So through social listening, we were able to figure out that people say amazing things about Qdoba, but they don't say amazing things about Chipotle. So we decided to take their words and turn them into our words. So again, making sure we're in that legal boundary of, what could go wrong with someone with lots of lawyers and billions of dollars. We were able to spin it, this negativity around trolling, into a positive experience where we highlighted the stories from our fans about our queso instead of focusing on the negativity of the Chipotle conversation.
We talk a lot today about transparency and trust, and social is obviously, good at potentially inspiring transparency. How do you counsel brands to, think about that and, help them deal with what's sometimes an uphill battle in terms of, garnering that trust from their customers?
Trust and transparency go hand in hand, especially on social media. Websites, I think, will always be around because of this. We like to say that Instagram is the new .com. It's the first place people go to experience what a brand is. But if they want to learn more, they need that central hub to figure out what the truth is behind the brand. So a lot of the time, the transparency does come out through websites. There's just not enough character counts in social media to be constantly transparent. With that being said, you do have the opportunity to be transparent through every single piece of content. Some of our clients, their actual brand positioning is transparency. So for them, it's very easy for us to dictate what a social strategy will be and what the output would be for every single post, because every word matters. But it really depends on what transparency means for that brand.
In your position as the head of social strategy, you're awash in all sorts of data. Mm-hmm. How do you blend kind of the art and science of data and sort of your own creative instincts, mm-hmm. and sort of your gut feeling about what might work with a certain audience or demographic?
There's an interesting approach that we take at The Many, and it's complete integration. There was a lot of silos in the past for what strategy is, for what creative is, and that just could not exist in this world right now. So for me specifically, I know everything I can know about who the audience is. For brand strategy, they know everything that they need to know about who the brand is and what the world is today. So we're constantly combining those two strategies into one, and the output is truth that it will work. Obviously, we want to test everything in qual and make sure that there's nothing awry, but making sure that we're using everyone's brain in the room has been really, really impactful for us, because we are looking at all of the white spaces, all of the things that could go wrong, what's the reality of the internet, as our baseline to figure out what we should do strategically and within content. For social in particular, the thing I find most important is figuring out who the audience is and what their feed looks like. A lot of brands are trying to figure out what their competitors are doing. What are the beacon brands doing? Who should we strive to be? For me and our company, we like to look at what the feeds are of our consumers. You don't have to compete against your competitors. You have to compete against the influencers, the celebrities, the media properties, the buzz feeds. They're the ones that are breaking up the feed. So trying to figure out what is impactful to that audience within their current feed is something that we also try to strive for.
And how about, if you were to counsel a brand to, if they, let's say they specifically want to target Gen Z.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. Probably every week, right? Or every day, maybe even. What are the new platforms that are actually, that you find are resonating with that particular demographic? And what's the type of content, perhaps more importantly, that you see resonating more effectively with that group, that generation, versus even millennials?
For us, and me in particular, it's not necessarily about what platform, it's about the reality of who the human is again. We always come back to the human insight of who they are. Gen Z might love gaming, but they might not be on Twitch. They might only like multiplayer games when they're having conversations with their friends online. So you can't necessarily target them on a social platform. You have to go out into the game to figure out how to target them through that platform. So this is much bigger than social. It's about digital, figuring out where your audiences actually are and authentically integrating there. With that being said, the budgets get a lot higher, so it gets a little bit more difficult to target people there. But in terms of platforms, I'm a huge TikTok fan, especially for this demographic. Huge fan of Twitch. I'm a huge Reddit fan as well. So it really depends on who the brand is. You can't just target Gen Z if you're a shampoo. And if you are, then you have to figure out a way to use Instagram. You can't join TikTok as a shampoo unless you have a brand personality that fits that platform. So again, it all comes back to the customization of who the brand is.
I'm kind of curious for your thoughts. We're reading about Instagram potentially doing away with the count numbers on posts and things like that. What are your thoughts, your initial reactions around that?
I think it would be extremely exciting. I think every client would hate me to say that, but as an industry, I think it would be one of the most interesting changes that's happened in quite some time. We built this social currency where your self-worth is based on followers and likes, and your KPIs are followers and likes. At the end of the day, it might not be actually about that. It's about one-to-one engagement. It's about building your community. Driving one sale is just important as in driving 10, because those 10 might never repeat. That one might repeat 10 times. So I think with the chance that Instagram could potentially get rid of their likes or followers, it would open the door for us to make content we actually want to make. There are so many guidelines that we have to follow based on KPIs, and I'm happy to follow them, and I'm happy to meet them and exceed them. But at the end of the day, if everyone could take a step back and say, what do I actually want to make as a brand? This would give us the opportunity to do that. I think Instagram would never completely take them away. I think brands would still have insights on the back end for what works. But for me, I think it would allow us to do something fun again and make the internet fun again.
One of the questions we love asking is a book that you'd like to recommend to our viewers. Any that spring to mind?
A book that I find near and dear to my heart is called Name of the Wind. It's one of the top fantasy books out there right now. Since I work in social, I like to leave the world sometimes. And I've been a fantasy fan my entire life, and being able to dive into something that doesn't exist is something that I've always really enjoyed, because the internet didn't exist, social media didn't exist. So there's all of these kind of connections between fantasy and social that I find interesting, because you get to make your own world on social. You get to redefine what something means. So for me, Name of the Wind is one of those books that I'm absolutely obsessed with and highly recommend. Even though the final book is 10 years in the making and we're still waiting, I still recommend reading that.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, KB.
Thank you.
That was KB, the Director of Social Strategy at The Many.